them very briefly and then turn it over to them. In order, no, not in order of where they're sitting, but immediately next to me is Benjamin Fischer, who's the president of the European Union of Jewish Students. Second from the end is Mr. Karel Fracapane, the UNESCO representative for Holocaust issues in the Division of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. In the center is Mr. David Ouellet, who is the Associate Director of Public Affairs for the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs in Canada. And then we have, I think at the end, Mr. Oleg Ivanov, who's a PhD candidate at the University of California, Los Angeles, and a member of the Diplomacy and Public Policy Group of the Jewish Diplomatic Corps of the World Jewish Congress. And finally, Mr. David Michaels, who's the Director of UN and Intercommunal Affairs at B'nai B'rith. Mr. Fischer, we all have a 5-minute rule, which we need to adhere to in order to have everyone have opportunity to say something.
Thank you for the organizers of this conference for helping us to come together and discuss this vital issue. I'm here representing the World Jewish Congress. Who is the World Jewish Congress? In short, we are a politically nonpartisan organization that advocates on behalf of Jewish communities around the world. Since our foundation in 1936, the World Jewish Congress has fought anti-Semitism and resisted attacks on the Jewish community. At the World Jewish Congress, we have often noted that one of the most prevalent forms of contemporary anti-Semitism is the attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel as a Jewish nation. This is especially clear in institutions of higher learning, which are supposed to foster open dialogue and inquiry. Instead, vitriolic attacks against Israel expose students and faculties to blind demonizations of Israel and intellectually unjustifiable double standards against the Jewish people and their right to statehood. In universities, anti-Israel activism is often used as an excuse to prevent Jewish students from participating fully in campus life. This is because of their real or imagined connection to the state of Israel. There are many fringe radical groups working to this end, but most of them have recently latched on to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israeli businesses, universities, and academics in order to achieve their goals. Chief among these goals is undermining Israel's standing in the global community, but this is often merely an excuse to alienate Jewish students from their peers and to minimize their participation in higher education. This movement has appropriated traditional anti-Semitic stereotypes and assigned them to the nation of Israel. By attacking those who support Israel's ongoing effort to live in peace with its neighbors, they have given new life and legitimacy to age-old anti-Semitic tropes. According to the Anti-Defamation League, there was more than a 50% rise in anti-Semitic assaults in the US between 2014 and 2015. In that same period, overall anti-Semitic incidents also doubled on American college campuses. Thus, we can see that there is a direct connection between anti-Semitic hate speech and violence against Jews. Now, what can we do to stem incidents like this? On the one hand, I believe that an important aspect of it is the way that we do Holocaust education. I believe it's important to make sure that the history of anti-Semitism extends beyond the Holocaust, showing both how old its roots are and how it continues to this day. It is important that we teach the roots of anti-Semitic stereotypes and the way that they arose from the social, political, and economic limitations historically placed on Jews in the Christian and Muslim worlds. We should link modern anti-Semitic stereotypes with both their religious and their secular roots. We need to show that there is a through line between religious, secular, and contemporary anti-Semitism, between Christian and Muslim anti-Semitism on the one hand, and fascist and communist anti-Semitism on the other hand, which lies at the root of a lot of anti-Semitic initiatives in the post-World War II period. We need to teach that anti-Semitism continues to be an official policy in many parts of the world, as many national governments continue to ban, restrict, or persecute Jews and Jewish traditions in their countries. Again, we need to teach that it preceded the Holocaust and extends well beyond it. We need to teach the history of anti-Semitism as part of a larger course on the history of racism and religious intolerance. Anti-Semitism is a major facet of the history of social justice. We need to link the struggle versus anti-Semitism with other similar struggles against racial and religious persecution. On the second front, there are certain practical recommendations, and here I'm going to echo things that were said before, especially in the previous panel. For example, we need to encourage interfaith dialogues and promote educational opportunities that highlight moments and traditions of religious and racial harmony. We need to show that different faiths, races, and cultures have found ways to live in harmony throughout history all over the world. We need to encourage exchange programs where students of different faiths get to experience the religious and cultural traditions of other faiths directly. For example, one such initiative at UCLA where I am that works in this regard is to organize trips to Israel for student leaders of varying faiths to combat anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist discourse. Lastly, we need to make sure that school administrations address and vigorously condemn anti-Semitic violence, speech, and vandalism on campuses. As we've talked about earlier, one of the ways to do this is to be able to define anti-Semitism. Now, while, as has been shown here today, that's not an easy topic, nevertheless, it's important that we encourage schools to adhere, I believe, to the U.S. State Department's definition of anti-Semitism, especially in the idea that demonizing Israel, applying double standards to Israel, and delegitimizing Israel constitutes hate speech and anti-Semitism. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
In response to boycotts against either pro-Israeli students on college campuses and American universities is really to build bridges. I think that this is really the way to combat this kind of hostility, and this has been spoken about today on other panels. And I think the important thing here is, again, we have to connect the struggle of Jews historically against anti-Semitism, which continues to this day. We have to link this struggle with other similar struggles. Again, like I said about other similar struggles against racial and religious persecution, that this is a social justice issue. This continues to be a social justice issue. And it's about building allies. It's about supporting one another in these struggles. It's about showing that this struggle against anti-Semitism is not over, that this is still a major issue in much of the world, certainly in America and in the West, but even more so in other parts of the world. And so again, this part of this education, I think, is making these bridges, especially with people that maybe we don't feel uncomfortable because we differ on other issues, and that's fine, but it's about starting that conversation. It's about being uncomfortable. It's about going into a place where, like a panelist said on the last panel, the risk might be very high, but the reward is also equally high. So again, I mean, I think this notion of building those bridges with other groups in this aligned struggle is vital in this perspective.
Great, terrific.